Hi everyone, today I'm going to walk you through the core features of Fantastitch. We've recently updated the interface and I thought it would be interesting to show you what's changed. Let's open a cross-stitch chart, for example, this owl. Right away, you'll see the main tools, the marker and the eraser. If you're new to Fantastitch, these two tools are all you need to get started. Pick any color and tap on it, it will be selected automatically. Take the marker and mark the stitches you've already completed. If you mark something by mistake, you can erase it with the eraser or simply use undo. At the bottom, you can see which color you're currently working with the selected thread. If I want to switch colors, I close the current one and choose another. Now it's DMC 725. I can see that I need to stitch 29 cross stitches in this color. I take the marker and mark them as I go. When I switch again, I close this color and select a new one. The stitches I've completed are now shown in green. The ones still to be stitched appear in the thread's original color. This brown is DMC 898, and Fantastitch shows that I still have 39 out of 58 stitches left to stitch. Let's explore what else Fantastitch offers. Here's the full menu with all available features. If we tap Home, we return to the main screen where all my active cross-stitch charts and the free charts are stored. But let's stay in the menu. For example, here's the color key. When we open it, we see a full list of all elements used in this chart. The numbers here indicate how many strands are needed for each element. There's also a filter. If I turn everything off and leave only half stitches, I can see that this chart includes 44 half stitches in DMC 223, worked with 2 strands slanting to the right. Everything is clearly displayed. I can turn crosses back on. Here we see cross and half cross stitches. If I enable only backstitch, then I will see backstitches only. Here are French knots in red, stitched with 2 strands, 10 in total. The key is extremely convenient. Tap the X to return to the chart. Next is statistics. While recording this demo, I've stitched 28 cross stitches, that's 8.7% of this small cross stitch chart. If I tap for more details, I can see how many stitches I've completed today, my average stitching speed, and the percentage progress. I can also take progress photos and use photo milestones to track how much I've stitched over specific periods of time. We have a separate video dedicated to statistics. It's a great modern feature. And don't forget, Fantastitch is completely free. Now let's look at material usage. This shows what materials you need to complete the chart. Tap it and you'll see the full list of threads used. You can also see which fabric count the calculations are based on and what fabric size you need to stitch this owl. On 14 count fabric, I need a 15 x 15 centimeters piece. I can switch the measurements to inches. In this column, you'll see how many skeins you'll need or the exact length in meters or inches. If I don't want 14 count Aida and prefer a Venwov or a different fabric count, I tap the calculator. Here I can calculate different options for Aida or a Venwov, various counts, with or without extra border for framing, and even add a safety margin for thread usage. I can also adjust how many strands are in a skein. Everything is customizable. The usage numbers will update automatically for, say, 18 count fabric, and they'll be different from 14 count Aida. Let's close the calculator and continue. In the color section, I can change the marker color. I can also adjust the highlight color separately. Right now, my marker is green. If I switch it to pink, everything I've marked as completed will turn pink. Since every cross-stitch chart uses different thread colors, this helps you choose a marking color that clearly stands out from the chart. You can choose gray, green, blue, whatever works best for you. There's also the highlight feature. I can select a highlight color, for example, yellow. Let's try it. I select a thread color and all stitches in that color are highlighted in yellow. The actual thread is gray DMC 453, but highlighting makes it much easier to see where those stitches are located. When I mark them as completed, the marker shows in blue. The contrast makes mistakes much less likely. Next, we have layers. Right now, all layers are visible. Cross-stitch charts are easiest to work in layers. First, we stitch crosses and half stitches. Then we add backstitch. Finally, we work French knots and decorative elements. When stitching crosses, decorative elements can sometimes get in the way. So I can hide or make the backstitch and decorative layers transparent. Now I see only cross and half cross stitches. If layers are hidden, an indicator appears at the bottom. I can turn them back on either semi-transparent or fully visible. I can also hide the cross-stitch layer. Since completed stitches are all marked in blue, it can be hard to see where backstitch lines start and end. Making crosses transparent or hiding their markings makes backstitch much easier to follow. Very convenient. Next are counters. Instead of counting stitches manually in a row or column, I can enable automatic counters. They can be placed on any side, left, right, top, bottom, or all sides. Let's keep one on the right. When I select a color, I see a number 4 meaning 4 stitches in a row. If there are more than 3 consecutive stitches, the counter appears automatically. Here we have 6. As I mark stitches complete, the number decreases. When only 3 remain, it disappears. Since counting 3 is easy visually, it's an incredibly helpful feature. Now let's look at grids. You can customize how the grid appears. Keep the 10x10 sections, add 5x5 subdivisions, mark the center of each 10x10 block, or highlight the chart's overall center. I personally prefer stitching with 10x10 blocks visible, a marked center, and grid lines around every stitch. Here my center is marked in red and the 10x10 sections are clearly visible. There's also parking mode. I don't stitch using the parking method, but I use this feature to mark where I stopped. When I enable parking, a small flag appears. I tap it to activate, then tap the stitch where I finished. A marker appears there. Next time I open the chart, I know exactly where to resume. The marker disappears automatically when I mark that stitch as completed. For larger cross-stitch charts, the navigator is very helpful. It shows which section of the chart you're currently viewing. I can move the frame to jump to different areas, and I can turn it off anytime. You can also toggle symbols on or off. By default, symbols are visible for easier stitching. But if the chart is monochrome or uses only 2 clearly distinct colors, you might prefer color blocks only. You can still select colors and mark completed stitches the same way. Look, the kitty is congratulating me. During this demo, I've reached 25% completion. It's a reminder to go to statistics and take a progress photo of your work. If you take photos regularly, you'll build a visual timeline of your stitching, and Fantastitch will automatically calculate how much you completed between photo milestones. So don't ignore the cat, take the photo. By the way, if no color is selected, you can mark any stitch freely, but that makes mistakes more likely. I recommend selecting a specific thread color before marking stitches. That way, you won't accidentally mark the wrong one. Whenever you select a color, the bottom panel shows which thread and how many strands to use. For example, here we have a blend. If I tap the blend icon, I see the details. This blend combines 1 strand of DMC 725 and 1 strand of DMC 223. The progress bar also shows how much remains in that blend. I hope this overview of the free Fantastitch app was helpful and interesting. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to help.